Hello, and welcome to ZAP, the Gender Pay Gap, the podcast series where we expose the elephant in the room. The elephant's name, the gender pay gap. I am coming to you from Memphis, Tennessee, located on the banks of the mighty Mississippi River. Nestled in the southwest corner of the state, Memphis is home to the blues, barbecue, and so much more. I am your host, Gwendolyn Tucker.
Thank you so very much for joining me for this episode of ZAP, the Gender Pay Gap. I am your host, Gwendolyn Tucker. I have a goal to increase subscribers to my podcast. Will you help me out? If so, just click the subscribe button. I'd be ever so grateful. Plus, you'll never miss an episode. And please look for me on Apple, Spotify, Google, and YouTube. Don't you just love having options? I know, I do too. Chico's is one of my favorite places to shop. And I really like it when I can find an article of clothing that I like in more than one color. I have options to choose from. I'm free to choose. My husband knows I really like Chico's. One day he saw an item that he knew I would like, and he knew he'd like to see it on me too. It came in an array of colors, so he purchased all of them. Imagine my surprise, a very pleasant surprise, when he opened the bag and out came not one, not two, not three, but four or more of the item in different colors. Now, or imagine going to your favorite restaurant. Perhaps you like it because you get to choose the flavor or menu of the item of the day. It's the same place, but there are a variety of options, and you have the freedom to choose. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, Gwendolyn, what in the world does Chico's or my favorite restaurant have to do with the gender pay gap? If you've been listening to previous episodes of my podcast, you already know my reply. Okay, what is it? Yes, I'm glad you asked. Ding, 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 ding. You are correct. And it's this. For the entire month of July, I have been talking about Independence Day and freedom. A major element of independence is to not be constrained in your options. Other said another way, having the freedom to choose. If you haven't listened to episodes published this month, please do so, especially last week's podcast, where I shared 4 ways to get a raise in 90 days. And I will repeat them here. Okay, so let's talk about ways I got a raise in 90 days. They involved me making these kind of moves: move up, move sideways, and move out. Making these moves required me to take some risk, to get out of my comfort zone, away from the familiar, and in some cases, even moving to another state. I actually did that twice. All of them eventually resulted in increased pay and ultimately increased financial freedom. So let's take a look at the moves I made in more detail. Number one, I was promoted to a job with more responsibilities and higher pay, but I had no direct reports. In other words, I was an individual contributor, but no other employees reported to me. The next move I made, I was promoted to a leadership position. It was a job with more responsibilities, higher pay, and direct reports. And I must say that the largest pay raises I received usually came when I took on a leadership position. Why? Because not only was I responsible for the work I did, part of the work I did included being responsible for and overseeing the work of others. The moves I mentioned thus far were moves made up the organization, increased responsibility, and increased pay. My third move was a lateral move, same grade and pay, but no direct reports. I moved from a job in finance and accounting into IT. This move involved relocating to another state, while remaining with the same employer. It really made no sense on paper to go from overseeing an audit scope of billions of dollars in assets to an individual contributor role in IT. But although it made no sense on paper, it did wonders for my bank account and for my career. So I moved up, I moved sideways, and then I moved out. You may be thinking the move I made out was out of the company. No, not yet. The move out was out of IT into one of the largest divisions within the company. It opened up a whole new world of opportunities and potential career moves. And there's one more move that I want to share with you. I've shared four with you so far. So this particular move, it resulted in me getting a raise, but it did not require me to take on more responsibility to move up or move out of the organization. And you may be saying to yourself, so what is it? I bet you've already guessed. Yes, I closed my pay gap. When I left corporate, I was earning base pay well above 100K plus bonus plus bennies in the form of stock options. And that was 20 years ago. And in today's dollars, that would equate to almost 225K in purchasing power. And I did that by making moves, by moving up, by moving sideways, and moving out to another division within the company. And at one point, getting a raise that closed my pay gap, all while remaining in my current position. Now, those who know me know that I love quotes. They just seem to stick in my memory. And here's one I really like. It was written by Marcel Proust, who, according to Wikipedia, was a French novelist, literary critic, and essayist who wrote the monumental novel In Search of Lost Time. To me, his quote is very applicable to what I have been discussing here today, and it reinforces a point. It says, the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. Is it possible that opportunities abound right where you are, but you just have to look with new eyes? Are you a woman in the workplace? Do you feel hemmed in and see no way out? Perhaps you have become so frustrated that you are seeking new landscapes. Go ahead, look outside, do that, but also consider having new eyes. Is it possible there are opportunities to close your pay gap and increase your financial independence right where you are? Now, I am serious about showing women how to create a greater degree of financial independence. And that financial independence comes with having options from which to choose. And it increases your options to choose both at work and in life. Now, perhaps having new eyes will expand your view. Is it possible you can remain with the same employer and have a variety of options from which to choose? Do you need help developing those new eyes? If so, I'd love to show you how. Now, remember, having options increases your freedom to choose, and having new eyes will help you see them better. Now, if you like what you've heard today, please share this podcast with another woman in the workplace. She just may be caught in the gender pay gap, and you may have a hand in helping her get out. I really hope you will take me up on that offer. Now, as a female leader, I have gained a lot of knowledge about pay systems and how they work, which is part of my purpose in creating this podcast and sharing this information with you. I want to share some of that and more with you, especially female leaders. So if you are a female leader, or you know one, or even if you aspire to be one, please plan to join me next time. I do thank you for joining me today for this episode. And oh, please don't forget to click subscribe. I do look forward to seeing you next Wednesday, where I have a word, especially for female leaders. So join me at noon Central Standard Time for the next episode of Zap, the Gender Pay Gap. Until then, please be well.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Zap, the Gender Pay Gap. Please rate, review, and subscribe to or follow me wherever you get your favorite podcast. I am your host, Gwendolyn Tucker. Thanks so much for listening. See you next time.